Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have another great episode. First, though, just some housekeeping. If you are using an iPhone or Android, you can subscribe to the Startup Sense podcast on iTunes and Google Play. And also, feel free to send me an email to jonahlupton@gmail.com and let me know what you think of the show. Okay, to the episode. So, our guest today is Sumaya Kazi. She is the founder of a company called Sumazi. Kind of put her first and last name together, and I'm assuming that's how she came up with the name for the company. What they do is they are a social data intelligence platform, and we'll talk about that. She's raised a little over $1 million from about 12 investors. She started the company back in 2011. Kind of started as a side hustle, kind of a side project, which turned into this, thriving company. And let's welcome her to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I think today is International Women's Day, so kind of a perfect fit that we have a female entrepreneur on the show. Before we talk about your company, tell us about yourself and what were you doing before you started the company?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Southern California, born and raised in California, went to school in Berkeley, studied marketing and business, and kind of got into the world of marketing really early on. I was working at Sun Microsystems, and they're no longer around. They were acquired by Oracle, but I was essentially in charge of helping Sun, which was enterprise hardware, be sexy. And I was super young working at Sun, and I was kind of the crazy kid who kept talking about social media back in 2004, 2005. When social media for business didn't exist, Facebook was just getting started. MySpace was kind of the big deal. YouTube was just getting started as well. Twitter wasn't around. And the people that I work with were like, we don't really know what's going on with this space, but we feel something bubbling up. So let's have you work on this. We like your ideas. Let's have you do this full time. So essentially became one of the very first social media leads at a Fortune 500 company, which was really exciting. And, kind of long story short, that, early effort in kind of the enterprise world, I started working with Sun Microsystems partners, the developer community, student community, all sorts of different communities. And when Sun got acquired by Oracle, I definitely saw that there was an opportunity on how businesses and individuals could leverage social in more intelligent ways. And that was kind of the impetus for Sumazi. However, while I was at Sun, I was actually working on something completely different, a company called The Cultural Connect. And it was more so something that I started. It wasn't really a company per se, as more of a passion project. And it was really just something that I started because I was pissed off with my cultural community and how they were identifying what success looked like in those communities. So I started showcasing different stories of success. It became this viral thing pre-social network days, and that was actually kind of my first taste of entrepreneurship. Got the blessing from the CEO of Sun Microsystems when we started getting in more news than Sun did, and I think that's really kind of what got me the taste of entrepreneurship, which gave me the courage to start Sumazi.
So when did you have the idea to start the company? And I know you were working full time, so how did you balance the two?
Yeah, so the first startup that I did, the Cultural Connect, was something that I was doing while I was working full-time at Sun Microsystems. Again, I didn't call it a startup at the time. I didn't recognize myself as an entrepreneur, but it was really about helping to redefine what success looked like in different ethnic communities. And before we knew it, we were in a lot of different press, and then Business Week recognized me as a top young entrepreneur in America. And it became very controversial because I was the only woman who was listed in the America list and the only woman on the global list of 75 entrepreneurs. I thought I was going to lose my job because, I was just doing this as like a side, it wasn't even like a project. It was just something that I felt like I needed to do. And the CEO got wind and, basically gave me his blessing and told the company like, hey, I think this is awesome. You should too. So I was really fortunate just because, a lot of companies don't have that same kind of, support for something like that. So I was working, full time doing social media and enterprise social media. But what was interesting is I was able to bring in so much of what I learned in social because I was doing social media for my startup on the side. And so I kind of learned the ins and outs. I built relationships with all the people that ran the social networks at the time. So I was really fortunate for that. When Sun got acquired by Oracle, it was one of those things where, I was kind of at this path of in which direction do I go? I could go, lead social at a company like Cisco or HP or Dell or, another kind of large company, or I could do something on my own. And at this time, with Cultural Connect, I was kind of winding it down. But what I was really most excited about with what we were doing was we were connecting our readers to the people they didn't know but should. We had this really cool feature on the end of all of our articles that encouraged our readers to introduce themselves to the people we were interviewing. And one of the conditions of the people we were interviewing was that they would have to be available to do so. And we were tracking tens and thousands of connections with people that were utilizing that tool and finding mentors, finding jobs, finding advisors, you name it. And so in my mind, I was like, there might be this really great opportunity to make this more on a larger scale. And what if it wasn't media, and what if it was technology, and what would that look like? So it was really kind of an idea on a napkin. I was consulting at the time. I was advising startups and large brands on kind of their social and data-driven strategy when the first kind of initial idea of Sumazi happened. How we got started, though, was crazy, and I look back at it and still have no idea how it actually kicked off, but I'm happy to share that story. It's related to Techcrunch Disrupt, Startup Battlefield.
Yeah, definitely. Now, are you a technical person? Are you a software engineer, and did you build the first version of your software?
Definitely not technical. I came from a very kind of math background. My dad is a math professor, and he actually, as crazy as it sounds, put me into community college at the age of 11, where I started taking math courses while I was still in middle school. So I'd go to middle school, and then during fourth period, I'd get picked up and then go to the community college, take math, and then come back for lunch. And that was kind of my upbringing. So I actually really liked it. College classes when you're 11 is actually kind of fun. You don't have to raise your hand to go to the restroom. There's vending machines everywhere. It was kind of one of those things as a kid. You're like, this is awesome. I liked how the teachers taught, and the thing is I didn't start with something crazy in math, but I advanced pretty quickly. I picked up Photoshop, I picked up front end just because it was an interest. I took some kind of programming classes from Berkeley, but it was never kind of, this is the coursework that I'm doing and I'm proficient in it. But working at Sun and working with a lot of technical people, I wasn't not around individuals that I can have conversations with about kind of the technical scope and that sort of thing. So that's helpful, but I wasn't technical.
So was it the acquisition of Sun Microsystems by Oracle that kind of pushed you into, going entrepreneurship full time?
Yes and no. I was thinking about it. I didn't know what it was that I was going to be pursuing. I was consulting for about a year. In that time frame is when I had this idea for what was, the early version of Sumazi. There was no name. There was no kind of technology, nothing like that. It was just more an idea on a napkin. And then this was, again, 2010, and I had heard about Techcrunch hosting a conference called Techcrunch Disrupt, and within it, they were going to have something called Startup Battlefield. I didn't know too much about it, but they had done a call for applications, and they said, if you apply, you will get feedback. And I thought, what's the harm in at least applying, getting some feedback on this idea? I just want to even know if there's some kind of shot on this idea. And that's as far as I wanted to go. It was literally just answering questions on this application. A few weeks later,
some people are afraid to tell their idea to anybody. So what was going through your head? You were really just looking for honest feedback. Is this even an idea worth pursuing?
Yeah. And I'm still a very big fan of sharing ideas, publicly and getting as much feedback as possible, because really at the end of the day, there's a million more ideas. It's about execution. It always comes down to execution. So I find more value in sharing than I do in withholding. And, at that time, I wasn't thinking about those things. I was just thinking it'd be good to kind of, as a forcing function, get these ideas in my mind and put them on paper. And then, if they give me feedback, win-win. That's really as far as I've gotten. And, I get this email back from Techcrunch saying, there's been 1,200 people who have applied, companies have applied. You're one of the 50 kind of semi-finalists. we'd like to interview you, and see a demo of your product. You're going to be on a Skype interview with the CEO of Techcrunch at the time, Heather Hard. And, we need you to set this up in the next like week or two. It was like they gave us time slots to figure it out. And in my mind, I'm going, what are you talking about? Demo of what? There's no
right, you didn't
product.
have a product, did you?
Nothing. No, there's nothing. Everything that I submitted on the application is as much as I had. That was it. And so there was no team, there was no name of company, there was no product, there was nothing. And so I'm just scratching my head going, I have no idea what just happened here. But I thought, what the hell? I mean, I don't even know what I was thinking. I decided to just kind of take the next step. So I had a kind of a vision of what I wanted this to look like in my mind. And I put my Photoshop skills to use and created some mock-ups of what I thought this, like, at the time, app would look like. And then I basically got on Skype with the CEO of Techcrunch at the time, and I basically made it seem like it was an app that was working. All I did was upload images of this app to my, like, photo album, and I'm clicking these buttons, pushing these buttons as if they work, and I'm kind of turning my phone towards me and swiping the photo. So after I press a button, it magically does something. So essentially vaporware. Not even vaporware. It's like a step below vaporware. I don't know what you call that. And so I thought, there's no way she didn't see past this. And to my surprise, about a week or two later, I get another email saying, congratulations, you're one of the 25 finalists. You're going to be competing at Techcrunch Startup Battlefield. You're going to be launching your company there. We need the name of your company and your logo, and you're going to start doing prep with the Techcrunch team in advance of the competition.
Jeez. So you were really faking it at that point then, weren't you?
I was, at this point, I'm freaking out because, there's no way. There's like, what are you talking about, right? And most of these companies, had raised money, had large teams of engineers, had a product they've been working on for a while. It's like, there's no way. And at the time, I was advising a company,
this was 2010, around there.
Yeah, this is end of the summer in 2010. So this is like August, like early September when this happened. This whole process happened. So at this point, I had about maybe 3 to 3.5 weeks before the competition. That's when I got kind of that final word, and they needed, all this stuff from us meaning me. There was no like team at this point. And I started working with friends who were essentially like, hey, this is crazy. We're happy to help. Let's do this. So it was essentially a team of friends / volunteers that were helping me out. I had hired a development team that I was familiar with because I was advising a startup that worked with them. It's a team in India. And I was like, hey, can I hire you guys on for this like crazy ass project that's gonna, I basically need to build a mobile app and maybe even a web service in the next 3 weeks. Are you game? And they're like, yeah, let's try it out. So it, went into my savings, hired them. And I didn't know what wireframes were at the time. I didn't know what prototypes were really. I didn't really grow into the world of entrepreneurship. The time when I was at Berkeley, people weren't talking about startups. It wasn't like how this industry and how this ecosystem is now. So I was really naive, I would say, about kind of what I was doing at the time. And so that's actually how the name of the company came about. They had asked the name of the company. There was no name. There was no time to come up with a name. Coming up with a domain, coming up with something that's not already, utilized by another company is really difficult. So I put it out to my friends. My roommate had suggested that she liked using my last name, Kazi. She was like, maybe Sumazi, Kazi. And I'm like, that's so stupid. There's no way. I'm never going to name my company after me. And we had a few other choices, but I wasn't happy with those either. We just took 10 options, checked it out to our friends and said, you guys vote on something. Whatever you vote on, we'll just use. And Sumazi came to the top. People thought it sounded like Sudoku, sounded Japanese. Our tagline that we had come up with was connect intelligently. So I was like, that's fine, domain's available. First thing that we did is we went to Urban Dictionary, created a definition for Sumazi, got it, so that it was displayed on the web and we had some SEO rankings for it.
That's actually a good hack. I never even thought of that before.
Yeah, it was kind of a joke at first, but then as soon as we published it, it was like, right, Sumazi was now listed. Like we were like the first to utilize it. And I think the definition's still up there. It was just such a crazy thing that we did. And that's how Sumazi started. And, after the competition, people were calling us Sumazing, and they were putting using our name in so many different ways that it was hard to change it. But, yeah, I mean, that was kind of how we got started. I don't know, those 3 weeks were a blur, honestly. I just remember creating the presentation the day of the competition because we were trying to build the technology. We ended up building a mobile app and a web service. It was really around helping individuals to connect with the people they don't know but should. So if you're looking for a need or an opportunity, I'm looking for a mentor, an advisor, I need a babysitter, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking to volunteer at a nonprofit. The idea was that Sumazi would help identify people in your network and your network's network that might be the right fit, and then actually make the introduction happen utilizing our tech. And that was kind of the early premise of Sumazi. We ended up, I don't know how, won the Media Award for Startup Most Likely to Change the World at the Techcrunch Disrupt competition. We got some really great press. We got some interest from early angels. That's how we got started.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. So you guys legit launched at Startup Battlefield, Techcrunch Startup Battlefield?
Yeah, how Battlefield has their like hackathons like the weekend before the the actual conference. In retrospect, we were essentially like that. We were kind of like, a company that was hacking for a short period of time that essentially launched as a company. That was basically what it was, but nobody knew that at the time. They thought we were this company that had been around and building this stuff and had this stuff, People didn't know that as I was walking on stage, our demo just stopped working. Like, it wasn't even functioning. And by the way, demo, I didn't even know what a beta was. I didn't know that you could launch a beta at Techcrunch Disrupt. And so every company that was launching was only sending out like 200 invites. People can sign up and you get an invite, and that way they can control how much traffic they had. I didn't know that. I didn't know that until like the day before, 2 days before. And there was no way for us to change our site so that it was only beta invites only. So we literally let every single person that touched our website in. And as I started doing the presentation, somehow we got the prototype to work, and our site didn't crash. I still am shocked by all of that. And we ended up gaining some really great visibility and a lot of interest, and that was how we got started.
So for the record, I'm on Urban Dictionary right now, and Sumazi is still there, and the definition is a social utility connecting you to the people you don't know but should, to connect intelligently. So,
there you go.
So in the beginning, you were building this app to connect people. Now this is more of an enterprise service, right?
Yeah. So we definitely have gone through several pivots, and like pivots mean so many different things in kind of, the startup world. Some pivots are people kind of shutting down the service entirely and then starting something completely different. It's something completely unique. Our pivots have always been an evolution of the initial product. And, we've had probably about 4 lives. I would say like 1 a year is kind of what we've been averaging-ish. But yeah, when we first started, it was a mobile app and a web service. It was around individuals. It was really, I miss it. It was really cool. It was, you can say, I'm looking for this, and you can share it to your social channels, and people can say, I'm the one, or I know someone for you, and I'll make a recommendation, or I'll spread the word. And we also had this like really cool visualization that showed what actions were being taken. So you can see that like 5 degrees of actions are happening where people are then making introductions and recommendations. So that was really kind of what Sumazi was about initially. As exciting as it was, and it was cool to see the impact that the tech was making in changing a lot of lives of people that were using this, it was really hard to find that business model with it, unless you're into the, tens of millions of users, or you have like an ad model or a subscription model. It's really, like how else you monetize. And the type of service we're providing isn't something that was designed for subscription and didn't make sense for advertising. So while this was happening, we started getting approached by businesses, individuals who are using our technology and everything. This is really awesome. I feel like my nonprofit or my small, medium-sized business could really leverage this. We are looking to hire. We're looking to find people to volunteer. We're looking for people, in our network. Is there a way to kind of utilize this for that? So we created a branded version for businesses to utilize it, charge kind of a SaaS fee for it. But at this time, we're a very small team. We're like 4 people going on 5. And, any company that's been in that position know that running a business to consumer and a business to business is like fairly impossible to do. It was ambitious, but it was just really difficult to do. So we had to make a tough decision.
Now, how does a small team land some large clients like Microsoft and Accenture?
I think a big part of that is just time. So, for example, Accenture, they've actually been following Sumazi since our early days, and their innovation team was always just kind of keeping tabs on us. As we were evolving, they were just interested in learning more. And then it came to a point a little bit about like a year ago where they actually felt like the latest kind of what Sumazi's offerings were not just interesting to them kind of as like keeping tabs, but it was like, hey, we can actually utilize your technology ourselves. Most of the companies that we work with have been referrals. So, I'll go to events and I'll meet with people, not so much to figure out what I can do for them, in terms of like what, pitching Sumazi per se, but it's always about how can I help these other businesses. So if there's a challenge that they have, I'm happy to like help answer their questions, put them in touch with other people and that sort of thing. And that has really paid it forward in ways that I can't even describe. So just being present and kind of sharing those connections with other people. My industry is in social. And so, it does help that the type of work that I did at Sun Microsystems, the people that I work with, who ran social across all these other companies are now, in charge of digital budgets and in charge of demand generation or, heading up agencies and that sort of thing. So when they hear about Sumazi or when they've seen that we've worked with a company like Microsoft, they're immediately interested in learning more. So, getting that kind of in the door aspect hasn't been difficult. What's always difficult for companies is the sell. Is this product going to actually be meaningful to a business? And we spent a big chunk of our time making that product market fit happen, and probably a longer time than most companies spend on making that happen. And that happened through kind of the various different pivots.
How much do companies typically pay for your service?
It ranges between $2,500 a month to be $20,000. It depends on how many communities, how much data, how much execution. We're kind of this hybrid company where we're somewhat high touch. Companies will come to us and tell us what they're looking for, what they need, and we provide the data strategy, the messaging strategy, the execution strategy, and the execution. But it could be for multiple products or one product line. It could be for multiple events. So it just kind of depends on what the needs are. What's interesting is that we are still very much in the social media space, but the budgets that we get access to are digital budgets. So essentially we're, getting budgets that are allocated to like advertising, but we're kind of one line item or a parameter within the ad budget, just because we're essentially helping businesses turn conversations into conversions, and they're seeing immediate ROI with it. So they're willing to put up that budget for something like that.
Okay. As you said, your team is about 4 people right now. What are the roles of each person?
We're 6 right now. Half of them are technical, so like a CTO, product manager, engineer, backend engineer. And then we have someone on customer success and kind of on the data side of things, and then myself. And I kind of span all functions, but primarily kind of sales, business development, partnerships, product, whatever is needed to be done. So we're still a pretty lean team, but that is possible because it comes down to the software that we have and being able to take something that would take 60 hours for someone to do at a company and, make it so that it's possible to do it within minutes.
What are some of your goals for 2017? Or I guess, you know what, let's back up first. With regards to fundraising, so when did you raise your first round of capital? And I know you've raised a few times from the same investor group. Like I said in the beginning, about $1 million total. But when did you first raise? Was it before you even started building the product, or was it after you built it and looking to scale?
Good question. I initially bootstrapped with just my own savings, and that was kind of the first year, like 2010 to 2011. So the entire dev team and just kind of anything that we needed was coming out of my own pocket. So essentially drained my entire savings and more. And then, when I was at Techcrunch, there was someone who was on the founding team of YouTube who had approached me and said, I really like what this is about. I like the mission. If you guys ever decide to raise money, let me know and I'd be interested. And then about a little over a year and a half later, this was in 2012, I approached her. She was the founding UI UX designer at YouTube. And I said, hey, I'm actually interested in raising. Would you still be interested? And she was one of the first people to put money in, which was really awesome. So that was kind of one avenue for angel investors. We had a group of investors led by one of the co-founders and CTO of Brocade, who is just this amazing person who invests in companies that are very mission-driven. And he has a network of investors that typically invest in kind of enterprise companies. And at the time, we weren't enterprise, we were consumer. And what was funny was I actually had noticed that someone was following me on Twitter who was an investor, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, we don't know each other. I saw that we're connected. Would you want to get coffee? And showed him a little bit about Sumazi. He was basically sourcing deals for this kind of investor group and liked what I presented and brought this deal to the table, and they ended up investing as a collective. So that was actually a Twitter, introduction from someone I had not met. So it's another example. But we raised over time. So it was probably it's what people call a rolling raise on a convertible note. And, truth be told, I didn't really know what I was doing. This was my first time raising. I was learning a lot in the process. Raised a chunk, was building up the product, went through a couple, of those iterations and pivots, raised some more money. And so it was kind of raising as we were, making these changes. About a year and a half ago, I was approached by individuals who are in kind of the sports marketing space. So former pro athletes or current pro athletes who saw an opportunity in how this type of marketing can be utilized in the sports industry with different teams or individuals, brands, and that sort of thing. So we got invested by some pro athletes and a sports agent, which has really kind of also changed the dynamic of the types of opportunities and business opportunities we get, which is pretty exciting. So our investors are kind of across the board, enterprise investors, early YouTube, one of the former head of marketing at Virgin, entrepreneurs who have, were successful and became investors. So I'm really fortunate to have a pretty eclectic and amazing supportive group of investors since our kind of early days.
So what kind of value are those investors adding, and what types of doors are they open for you?
Ooh, great question. It's kind of split. There are some investors who are very, just kind of quietly they're there. If I need something, if I have a question or something, they're there. They're not necessarily proactive, and it's probably because they're incredibly busy and they have a large portfolio of companies that they support. There are a handful of investors who are just, are always reaching out, calling me, texting, asking to do lunch, always so incredibly supportive. I mean, these angels are literally angels. They have supported my business in even the darkest of our times and have always been there and have always been super positive. And those investors are the ones that are constantly asking to make introductions, a supportive person to kind of talk to, make me feel a little bit better about our situation, whatever it is. are kind of our biggest cheerleaders. So I would say it's a half and half mix. I'm grateful to all of them. I'm especially grateful to the ones that are, can be supportive when things don't look as, rosy. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned dark times. What were some of those dark times, and was there ever a period where you thought the company wasn't going to make it?
Oh yeah. Well, I think there's more of those times than there are good times. I mean, let's just be honest. Building a company is one of the hardest things to do. Starting a startup is sexy. Building a business is not, and it's not glamorous, and it's not sexy. It's hard, and you're essentially, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you're putting everything kind of on your shoulders. You got to make sure that payroll is being hit. You got to make sure the investors are, feeling like their money is being put to good use, and there's going to be some kind of, ROI for them. You have customers and people who are utilizing your technology that have, expectations and things are supposed to, and then you're also competing with the industry, you're competing with yourself, you're competing with, a lot of different changes. And this is all while trying to manage some kind of social life. Things are happening with your family, things are happening, personally, and it's hard. For me personally, there's been, multiple times where we've run out of cash. I mean, not once, but multiple times. And doing the hustle of keeping the lights on from one payroll cycle to another is one of the hardest, most painful things to do. Even though we've raised, I ended up borrowing money from closest friends to help because I didn't feel comfortable getting investors to invest more money until I felt more, more aligned with kind of where we were going and, hitting that kind of product market fit. Trying to keep the momentum going while, having that fuel, basically running on zero to low gas is one of the most difficult things to do. So that's one kind of type of difficulty that I have faced, and I know several entrepreneurs have gone through that, and it is a dark, dark time when that happens. The second bucket of kind of hardships are when people leave. So a lead engineer that we were working with, who's amazing and, rightly so, got recruited by one of the big tech behemoths. And I wasn't surprised because he was incredible, but there was no way for me to compete with his salary. And there's just no way. I was happy for him, because this was a really great opportunity. And I thought, when we lost him, again, we were a super small team, that was it. We don't have our lead engineer, and he basically is running our tech, and what are we going to do? And he was amazing, so much so that he even told this company that he was going to start with them until we found a solid replacement. And that probably took 3 or 4 months. So he did not even leave until we were set up, and transitions were good and that sort of thing. So it's just incredible, and was still there to advise and help us out and that sort of thing. So that was difficult. Our front-end designer, who was amazing, was also recruited by a very big company or a big startup that had raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Again, couldn't compete. And, it's sad, but I'm also happy for them. But it's also what does that mean for your company? So those were tricky. But the interesting thing for us is after we lost, and this was, they represented our technical team at the time. So essentially, we had no technical team when these two individuals left. And instead of hiring, we made this crazy decision to just focus on utilizing the technology we had built and seeing and better understanding how our customers needed to use us. And what happened after that was pretty magical because we essentially figured out all the things that weren't working, all the things that they did need, and while we didn't have the perfect solution for it, we figured out some ways to kind of work around it without adding new technical developments to it. And that offering was essentially what kind of led us to becoming a profitable, growing business. That kind of product market fit had kind of hit. And it was a really great opportunity. And we're still kind of in that. This probably was a year and a half ago. And now we've been investing in making that smarter, better, that sort of thing.
So you've been running this company for, the better part of 5 or 6 years. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, so 5 or 6 years sounds like a long time. It also,
It does.
for me personally, sounds like it flew by. It's both. When I look at the news and I look at startups that are starting and read how quickly companies move and that sort of thing, I feel like, man, this has been a lifetime. I've been doing this for a really long time. I should have been here and that. Start kind of doubting decisions and I could have done this better or that sort of thing. Then I take a step back and I realized a few things. All the companies that I started out with, when we first started, don't exist. Most of them have shut down. They've raised $10 million, don't exist. A lot of the companies that are or were in our competitive space also have shut down. And so the fact that we're still kind of alive, kicking and growing, I will take that as a win. A lot of companies will, or some companies will have, built out something, shut it down, rename it, build something else, that sort of thing. And so it might be nice and shiny every new year, but it's essentially, still trying to figure things out. So I've learned that I try to keep my blinders on, or when it comes to kind of news and the startup space, because, we kind of look at people's highlight reels and compare that to our beginning, middle, or end or whatever, and that's not healthy. So I've really just focused on our business, what we've accomplished, how far we've gotten, and the fact that there's still so much opportunity for us. So I think that's kind of one thing. It's really easy to get caught up in the industry and startups around you. And really the startups that we hear about are the ones that are doing well. You don't hear a lot about the companies that aren't doing well or are struggling and that sort of thing. So that's one. Two, it's really about the people, you work with. This is a really difficult thing to do, building and growing a startup. And I'm really fortunate to be working with people that I genuinely love to work with and enjoy spending time with and growing with and sharing with. And I think that makes the world of difference. You're spending, the majority of your day and week with these individuals, and you want to make sure that it's with people that you want to work with and will be supported, and you'll support them.
So let's talk about, let's go back to that
Yeah.
question, your 2017 goals. I mean, this can be in terms of growth or adding new employees, adding new clients, whatever it might be. But what do you think about the most when you wake up in the morning?
Yeah. So 2017, I'm excited about. It's for us. It really is about growth. I would say about a year ago, we found kind of our product market fit. We've been working very closely on product pricing fit with the different types of customers we work with, because we work with a variety of customers. It's trying to find what works well with what. Enterprises work very differently. It takes, for one company we work with, it took 6 months before we became an official vendor. And it's not because it was any lagging. It was the legal, the contract, the compliance, all of the steps that you need to do to finally become a vendor. And then once that happens, then it's just a lot of magic. So those relationships have recently happened. So now it's like, okay, growing within those companies. It's about, accelerating our technology, hiring, growing into spaces that we haven't, figuring out just how impactful our technology can be, working with more nonprofits and foundations, for example. Our technology, we have a lot of interest in our technology being utilized for, politics, and different campaigns. So there's an opportunity there, really growing within the sports and marketing world. And then obviously in kind of just the enterprise and B2B world as well. What I've noticed recently is the companies that we're working with, the types of companies that they're like the node or the connectors to many divisions or many opportunities. And what we're doing right now is trying to set ourselves up for that type of growth, where it's like one company that has 30 divisions that each have 50 campaigns can get onboarded with our technology very, very quickly. And we're excited about that.
Awesome. Trying to think what questions I want to ask you before we wrap up here. I mean, you've mentioned that most of your clients have come to you through word of mouth. Have you done any other sort of marketing or PR or speaking at conferences? I mean, what else is driving business for you? I mean, I assume you can't rely on referrals exclusively, right? So you got to be doing something else on top of it.
Yeah, well, the thing is when times are tough, I can't even think about any of that stuff. It's like trying to get the nuts and bolts to really kind of come through. So I haven't actually even been speaking in a while. This is my first kind of, a discussion, that we're having that I've done in a while. We utilize our own technology to kind of generate leads and start conversations with individuals. I had to pause that because, say I reached out to 100 people utilizing our technology, like 60 to 70 of them responded within a few hours and wanted to set up meetings, and I didn't have that kind of bandwidth to take that on. So, we've been primarily working on referrals. You'd be surprised at, just how much opportunity there are with those referrals. As we do grow and scale, though, we are going to be looking to employ kind of other strategies. Ultimately, it will come down to the kind of the decision makers at agencies, people who kind of manage and head up digital at different, businesses and brands. But we pick and choose the companies that we want to work with. There's a lot of companies we say no to just because it's about the fit and it's about kind of the long-term relationship that we're looking for. Do they have the types of audiences that make sense for our technology and that sort of thing? So luckily we haven't been in the problem of, opportunities. That hasn't been a struggle. It's really just, we want to make sure that the companies we're working with are that longer term fit and isn't the company that we just work with for like a few weeks and then it's kind of a one and done type of effort.
Do you think you'll ever, pivot into a more SaaS business model with, I guess a less expensive product and then go after the masses? So, maybe you're charging $500 a month, but you have 1,000 customers, for instance?
You're kind of reading my mind. That's actually something that just recently came up as an opportunity. So, we have two kind of very different buckets of companies that we work with. The enterprise just works very, very differently. They have quarterly budgets. They have certain way of invoicing. They have certain kind of measurements that they have to focus on and that sort of thing. And so, the way you have a statement of work and the way you get budget is very, very different with those companies. However, we work with a lot of startups, and we work with a lot of small brands and individuals that, if anything, our technology really kind of kickstarts and grows their business, generates a lot of leads from the right people. So we are actually looking at something in our 2017 plans to build out our technology to make this available for that kind of type of company, which we're excited about. But, it is what we do isn't necessarily simple. There's so many components to it. So making sure that this technology works in a way that is still just as impactful as when we do it is going to be that key. But we're excited to figure that out. So that's something that we're working through now. But that being said, we find a lot of value working with smaller businesses now. We work with their budgets and, early on, if we can show that ROI, they're able to invest more money into it because they're seeing that return right away. So, for us, it's just making sure that that price point matches with the types of companies we work with.
What's your favorite company success story to date?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, one of the organizations that I'm most proud that we support is Glide. Glide supports the homeless in the San Francisco Bay Area. They have a soup kitchen. They provide a lot of really meaningful resources to the underserved, under-resourced community. And Sumazi has been they've utilized their technology for years now. We've helped them grow their donor database. We've helped them fill in their volunteer slots for their soup kitchen when they're in dire need of having people to actually volunteer. We've gotten new kind of their future philanthropists in the door by inviting the right people to their events. And we get people to their galas. And these are people that, have an interest but have never really been introduced to Glide. And so for us to be able to bring in the masses into an organization and see the impact that these individuals have is pretty incredible personally. And we love supporting organizations like that. So we work with a lot of nonprofits that have some really great missions and try to make our technology available to them.
And last question here is, what motivates you as an entrepreneur? I mean, you could go work for another big company and make really good money, but what makes you get up every day and want to grow Sumazi?
I think there's a couple components to this. One, I've always been kind of that creative, ideas person, and the idea to be able to work on an idea and to do it and to compete with yourself is really exhilarating. And even when it's good or bad times, it's really you that kind of has to push through and make it happen. And I enjoy that experience. I like being able to work with the people I want to work with, bring on the customers that we want to work with and support, and also kind of build a culture that we're proud of. That's really important. Being able to, for example, our team is entirely remote. We used to have an office. We decided to give up the office and work wherever there was Wi-Fi, and it was the best decision we made. We do a lot of workations. We work, wherever, and people are excited. It's just something that we're able to do and we're able to control. That's just one small of many things that, are benefits of building a business that's your own. But I think more so, the biggest thing is to be able to solve some big challenges and some big problems out there. Like, to utilize this technology for good is really what drives me every day. I just see all the opportunities of how this technology can be utilized. I'm excited with how businesses are using it now, but I feel like there's so much more opportunity to get this technology in the hands of the people that really need it. And as we become more and more of a viable, and as we become even more profitable, it gives us more opportunity to be able to give our technology to the organizations in need. And I'm really excited about that.
Actually, last question here, because you never know who's listening to the episode. If we could get you in front of the decision maker of your dream client, who would it be?
Ooh, there's two. Well, I would say that at this point, working with the United Nations on all of their campaigns and their petitions, the support that they need to get is something that I would be incredibly happy to do and support. That would be amazing. And then kind of on the more business side of things, the CMOs of, the top Fortune 500 companies are essentially the company that we'd like to continue working with. We've been working kind of division by division at companies, and now we're kind of growing into the opportunity to work more top down. So work with the CMO and then deploy our technology across the company instead of going one division at a time. So that would be kind of my two number one picks.
Cool. That hopefully someone listening can make those introductions for you. With that, actually, what is the best way to find you online or connect with you offline?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much on all the social channels, Facebook and Twitter, Sumaya Kazi on Facebook, at Sumaya on Twitter. And then, anyone's welcome to email me, sumaya@sumazi.com, SUMAYA@SUMAZI.com. And it's, if you want to learn more about Sumazi, or if there's even just, questions that I can help answer in the marketing space, I'm happy to help. If you're a new founder or you have burning questions and you think I could be useful, trust me, I would be happy to help answer. I wish I had more people in my life early on that would have done the same. So I'm available to the Startup Sense Network. And Jonah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Yeah, I'll put all your contact information in the show notes and the description, so people will be able to find you and reach out to you if needed. And thank you so much for that offer. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a guest. It's been great talking with you. We went a little longer than I wanted to, but you just had so much information to share. I didn't want to cut you off. And thanks for spending this time with us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you soon. Bye.